In the fall of 2024, one of the themes that we wanted to focus on here at Holy Spirit is the gift of priesthood. And Father Ross asked me if I would reflect on some of the important priests in my life. I have a suspicion that it might end up making more than one video, but I wanted to start with a priest that inspired my vocation. I owe a tremendous amount to him, and that is Father Michael Hicken. He came as pastor to our parish in Harvey, I think when I was a junior or senior in high school, so that had to be sometime around 2004. Maybe he came in the summer of 2004. Or it could have been a little bit earlier than that. But I know that last year of high school he had decided that we were going to start having adoration again in Harvey. It had been many years since that had been done, and he wanted to begin. We started with an hour a week on Tuesdays, and he invited me to serve for it and to come each week, and that became one of my favorite times, just being able to spend the time with the Lord, to be in his presence. I brought some books to read, I spent some time in prayer, and I had the chance to learn a lot from his example. As I look back, there were so many different things that he did in those years while he was there, when we had a lot of contact with each other, that I look back on with great thanksgiving. They were important for me. One of the things about Father Hicken that I appreciate so much was his love for the parish. There were times that it was a challenge for him, and he just poured his heart into it. He would spend hours working and writing on his homilies because he wanted people to understand the message and the scriptures. And he had a way of preaching that brought it much more to my level. I certainly remember reflecting on some of them to this day. Some of his homilies have stuck with me, and some of the things that he said. But it was just that example. I mean, you could tell that there were times where he was really wrestling with it. He was wrestling with what to say, was wrestling with how to say it. And what ended up coming out was not always the greatest speech that I had ever heard, but was filled with love, but was filled with heart, that had a kind of dramatic impact on me as a person, on my life as a priest, and I think on the whole parish. He was willing to give himself in a way that was very vulnerable. Standing up as a priest sometimes in front of the congregation isn't always easy. And I just remember that week after week, him being there and pouring out his heart and sharing so many of the lessons that he was learning with us, and the beautiful ways that God was at work in his heart, and the ways that he was inviting us as the congregation to live in deeper communion with God, to discover more of his work, to live more according to his designs. Another thing that he did that really inspired me was that he was kind of hard to find. If you were looking for Father Michael and you were in Harvey, sometimes you would call or you'd have a question for him, something like that, and it was very common to have the response that he was in the chapel praying. Or, you'd leave a message and you'd discover later that he was in the chapel praying. And you could just tell that was something that he spent hours at every day, that was something that was deep in his heart, that he cared a lot for us as people. And so it became kind of charming. Sometimes if I needed to find him, or if I had something I wanted to talk about, I'd just walk to the church first, since it wasn't too far from our home, because very often I would find him there. And another thing that he did, which was really, really beautiful and had a huge impact on me, is I always felt like he had time. Sometimes I would have questions on the scriptures. Sometimes it was just to talk. This was a time when I was starting to participate more in the faith, when I was starting to come alive, and he was just present, and we would sit and we would visit, and sometimes over a meal, sometimes in various places. Sometimes it was he and I and my grandparents, my mom's parents, Edward and Julia Singer. We would sometimes go out for morning breakfast after the Mass when he was with us, and every once in a while he would join us, and it was just a chance to be with him, to be very, very human, very connected, and that was something that I really admired. There are so many other things to the life of a priest, but I think his example really was striking for me. His example, seeing him, the way that he worked, the way that he lived, was kind of a motivation for me to actually take the plunge and become a priest. He's the one that gave my name to the vocation director and started the whole process of me going into the seminary. Vocation director was the very own Father Dukeshire from Holy Spirit. And there's many other priests that have had an impact on me. It's kind of a beautiful thing to just sit back and reflect on, because they're years gone by. It surprises me how many years ago it was, and it's good just to return to some of those memories and think of it. But these are some things that I give thanks to God for in the life of Father Michael Hicken, and he is a large part of the reason why I became a priest. Both his gentle push to join adoration and to pray, to be present, and that connection with the vocation director. It all kind of came together, and now I'm a priest today and been able to serve here at Holy Spirit for the last number of years. God bless you.